Samuel L. Jackson never hid his views. He spoke loudly, confidently, and with the same charisma that made him a Hollywood legend. In the months leading up to the 2016 election, he said more than once, if Trump wins, he will leave the United States. He said it with such unwavering confidence that no one doubted that the actor could really pack his bags and leave. His words quickly spread across the media and social networks, and headlines screamed, "Samuel L. Jackson will emigrate if Trump becomes president." Election day arrived, and the country froze. Millions of people watched the vote, argued, debated, hoped. Liberal America was confident of a Clinton victory, and Hollywood didn't even think Trump would win. But by morning, everything had changed. Donald Trump had become the 45th President of the United States. The media exploded, social networks were filled with emotions, from delight to shock. The press immediately recalled Jackson's promise. Journalists, bloggers, fans, everyone was waiting for his reaction. When is Samuel leaving? Which country will he settle in? Twitter was filled with such questions. But Samuel remained silent. He avoided comment for several days until he finally appeared in an interview on one of the evening shows. The host did not beat around the bush. "So, Mr. Jackson, Trump has won. Where do you plan to live?" The audience laughed. The camera caught the actor grinning, but there was not a drop of humor in his eyes. "I said I'd leave if he won," he said after a pause. "But I didn't say he actually won." A tense silence fell over the room. Millions of people remain against him. He didn't win, he just got more votes in the right states. That's not a real victory. The audience applauded. Jackson leaned back in his chair, taking the moment. "And if that's the case," he added with a predatory grin, "I have nowhere to go. I'm staying." This statement became a sensation. Liberal media immediately picked up the actor's words, turning them into a symbol of resistance. "Jackson stays to fight. The resistance begins," screamed the headlines. On social networks, his phrase instantly turned into a meme and a hashtag. But it was clear that everyone was waiting for the main thing, Trump's answer. He didn't keep us waiting long. The very next day, a post appeared on his Twitter. "So Samuel L. Jackson changed his mind about leaving? Oh, what news! Guess who didn't get a ticket on the first flight? Face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy." The internet exploded. Trump supporters laughed and posted photoshopped images of Jackson's suitcases, while liberals were indignant, calling the president a vengeful troll. But most importantly, the confrontation had begun. Two cult figures, two charismatic characters, two real showmen, and both understood perfectly well that the audience was thirsty for a show. Their public war was just beginning. Samuel L. Jackson knew perfectly well that Trump would not leave his statement unanswered. He was no stranger to public conflicts, and knew how the media space worked. Moreover, he knew Trump. He never missed an opportunity to poke his critics and always did so with his usual sarcasm. Jackson waited for his words to cause a reaction, and of course, it happened faster than he expected. Trump's post went viral. Some laughed, others were outraged, but no one was indifferent. TV presenters and political analysts immediately picked up on the topic, discussing why Samuel changed his mind about leaving and how Trump would use this moment for his political game. The actor could not allow himself to be driven into a corner. He needed a worthy answer. He chose Twitter. "Donnie, don't you think you have better things to do than keep track of where I'm going? Oh, and I forgot you don't even know where you're taking this country." This tweet instantly gained thousands of likes and reposts. The comments were torn. Some supported the actor, others rushed to defend the president. The feud moved to a new level, turning into a spectacular confrontation, in which each new post was like a shot. A few hours later, Trump responded again. Samuel L. Jackson has always been overrated. He was worst in Pulp Fiction. Now he wants to be a political analyst? Hollywood has completely lost its mind. It was an open insult, and Jackson was not about to let it go unanswered. The next day he appeared live on one of the major TV channels. The host was smiling, preparing to discuss the scandal. Samuel, the president said you're an overrated actor. How do you feel about that? Jackson chuckled. Given his taste in entertainment, I would be more worried if he called me great. The hall exploded with applause. Do you understand that this conflict is gaining momentum? Aren't you afraid that he will say something else? Let him talk, Jackson said. We have freedom of speech, don't we? I'm just exercising my right to remind people that the president is supposed to be taking care of the country, not getting into arguments with actors. The words immediately spread across news sites. Now the conflict has gone beyond Twitter and has become the real topic of the week. Trump supporters continue to attack Jackson, calling him a hypocrite and an elitist who is out of touch with the country's real problems. Jackson fans, in turn, mocked the president with new memes and parodies. Meanwhile, TV presenters and journalists debated who was right. Some said Jackson was just trying to attract attention to himself, while others claimed his courage was the voice of millions who disagreed with the government. But one thing was clear: this dispute was no longer just a personal conflict. It had become a symbol of the division of America into two camps, and neither was going to back down. The Samuel L. Jackson Donald Trump standoff has long since transcended social media. It was more than just a spat between two famous people. It became a cultural phenomenon that split audiences into two camps. Some supported Jackson, considering him a voice of reason in an era of chaos, and others sided with Trump, accusing the actor of hypocrisy in an attempt to attract attention. Television immediately picked up on their dispute, turning it into one of the main political and media conflicts of the year. Every evening, news and talk show hosts analyzed new posts, recalled their past statements, invited experts and political scientists to dissect the situation down to the last molecule. It seemed that the country was obsessed with this conflict, and no one was going to forget it. Trump, as usual, never missed an opportunity to respond to his opponent, and his comments became increasingly sarcastic. In one interview, he chuckled and said, "This guy has spent his entire life screaming in movies and scaring people. And now he wants to teach me how to run a country? Funny." The phrase instantly spread across all news channels. In response, Jackson went on air on a popular show and said with his signature intonation, "I don't teach him how to run a country. I just remind him that this is his job." The audience burst into applause. At some point, even the hosts who usually tried to remain neutral began to speak out. Some said Jackson was overstepping his bounds, while others claimed he was only saying what millions were thinking. Politicians also weighed in. Some Democrats openly supported the actor, while some Republicans, on the contrary, said Jackson was engaging in cheap populism and did not understand how real politics worked. Meanwhile, the internet was literally blown up by endless memes and jokes. Users created parody dialogues between Trump and Jackson, drew cartoons, made video clips where their comments were superimposed on scenes from films. One of the most popular was a meme in which Trump and Jackson were supposedly having a rap battle, and their tweets were turned into song lines. Journalists began digging into the past of both, finding any points of contact. One of these discoveries was a photo of Jackson and Trump playing golf at the same club several years ago. This caused a new wave of controversy. Trump immediately responded in his usual style. "Samuel always wanted to play in my club, but no one invited him. He's probably jealous." Jackson did not remain silent. In one interview, he laughed and said, "I didn't need to join to know who you are." That response went viral again, and journalists dug even deeper. Old recordings of Jackson criticizing Trump before his presidency and Trump's allegedly calling the actor a friend surfaced, fueling interest in their feud. They continued to remain at a distance from each other, never meeting in person, but creating the feeling that every dialogue they had was happening in the same space. It seemed that their verbal duels had become something like an ongoing show, where every new phrase, every new post on social media became another act of this performance. But no one could predict what would happen next. The escalation had already reached its peak, and the country froze in anticipation of the next move. The controversy surrounding Samuel L. Jackson and Donald Trump took an unexpected turn when journalists began actively searching for evidence of their past acquaintance. The internet was already abuzz with conspiracy theories. Some claimed that they were old enemies, while others, on the contrary, assumed that their entire verbal duel was nothing more than a carefully planned show that benefited both of them. The bombshell came when a news channel posted archival footage of Trump and Jackson playing golf at an elite New York club. They looked friendly in the video, with Trump explaining something while swinging a club and Jackson laughing and clapping him on the shoulder. The comments started pouring in. Were they friends? Hypocrites! They inflated the show for the sake of ratings. Here's Samuel L. Jackson, who never had anything to do with Trump. Trump's reaction was immediate. Always knew he was faking. He wanted to join my golf club, but they wouldn't let him. Now he's upset. This tweet blew up social media again. Some laughed, others were indignant. Jackson didn't hesitate to respond. In an interview that evening, he responded with his usual sarcasm. Let's get something straight. I didn't join his club. I didn't want to join his club. And honestly, if I had, I would have just bought the damn club. The hall exploded with applause. But there was no stopping the journalists. They started to dig up old records, looking for any points of contact. It turned out that Jackson and Trump had crossed paths back in the 90s at various social events. In one of the photos, they were standing next to each other at a reception dedicated to the opening of another Trump hotel. Jackson responded again. Are you serious? I've been photographed with many people. That doesn't mean I support them. But that wasn't enough. Trump's supporters began attacking the actor, claiming he was playing to the crowd, that he himself was part of the elite he was now criticizing. In response, Jackson's fans reminded him that Trump, too, was part of Hollywood, appearing in films, TV shows, and surrounding himself with stars. Journalists only fueled the interest. On air of one of the talk shows, the host expressed the opinion that their conflict was beneficial to both. They behave like two professional showmen. Their confrontation keeps the audience in suspense, which is beneficial to both Trump and Jackson. This comment sparked a new wave of discussion. Is this all really a show? Or is their feud real? Each new day brought new statements, but one thing remained constant: they never met face to face. Jackson would appear on TV, give interviews, write posts, but he avoided any physical contact with Trump. Trump, for his part, also preferred long-distance squabbles, as if he understood that a real meeting would deprive their confrontation of the energy it had in virtual space. Meanwhile, their dispute was increasingly dividing society. Some saw Jackson as a voice of resistance, while others saw him as an actor fanning hatred. Social media became a battleground, with each side defending its hero. But no one knew what would happen next. Their war continued, and there was no end in sight. The feud between Samuel L. Jackson and Donald Trump continued to escalate. It seemed like every tweet, every interview, every word they said was instantly the talk of the town. Both were relentless. Jackson never stopped criticizing Trump, and Trump never missed an opportunity to poke fun at the actor. Their standoff became more than just a dispute between two famous people. It became a symbol of the division that was sweeping the country. Every time Jackson appeared on a talk show or gave an interview, the host invariably brought up his conflict with Trump. At one point, the actor even laughed on air after hearing yet another question. Honestly, do you really think I wake up in the morning and check what Trump wrote first thing? I have more important things to do. But of course, everyone knew he was watching. Just like Trump was watching his every word. The president continued to ridicule Jackson, calling him a star who has long since faded, and another liberal snob who thinks he has the right to tell people how to live. Jackson returned the favor, recording a video message in which he looked directly into the camera and said, Donald, you can laugh, you can tweet as much as you want, but you know what's funny? You've spent more time arguing with me than you have solving the country's real problems. The video has garnered millions of views. Meanwhile, journalists continued to escalate the situation. Political scientists, analysts, comedians, everyone was discussing why Trump and Jackson couldn't just meet and discuss everything face to face. Some suggested that the president was afraid that the actor would win this debate in person, while others believed that Jackson was avoiding the meeting because he didn't want to lose his position as an eternal critic. But the truth was different. They both understood that as long as their duel remained virtual, it remained interesting. It kept people on their toes, it kept the audience from getting tired. A real meeting could have ended this war, but there was no point. Both Jackson and Trump were too smart to destroy what had already become part of American culture. Meanwhile, fans continued to fight in the comments, memes multiplied, and TV hosts happily invited experts to discuss the new round of conflict. More and more people realized that this was not just a dispute, but something much bigger, something that could no longer be stopped. Several years passed. Trump was no longer president, but his influence had not disappeared. Jackson remained a vocal critic of his policies, and their private spat would occasionally flare up with renewed vigor. One day, a journalist asked Jackson a question. "Samuel, if you had the opportunity to meet Trump, would you agree?" The actor grinned, looking straight into the camera. "There is no point in dating a person whom you understand without words." And the whole country started talking about their feud again. Because their battle seems to never end.